Good morning, Mr. Seleka. Good morning, everybody.
Morning, Chairperson.
Good morning, Mr. Koko.
Good morning, DCJ.
Thank you. Okay, you ready?
We are ready, Chairperson.
Yes. Okay, and Mr. Koko is represented by the same legal team as before.
Yes.
Okay.
Chair, there is also a legal representative for Mr. Jabu Mabuza.
Yes.
She may want to place herself on record.
Yeah, please, she must do that. You can do that from where you are if your mic is working. Yeah, that one should be working.
Good morning, Chair.
Good morning.
My name is Leaho Matabate, and I'm from Nortons Incorporated, and I'm here on behalf of Mr. Jabu Mabuza.
Okay.
We did notify the Secretariat that our client does not at this stage intend to apply to cross-examine Mr. Koko. However, we just wish to place on record that his rights in this regard are
I'm sorry, I can't hear you well, yeah.
We just would like to place on record that our client's rights in this regard are expressly reserved.
Yes, okay, all right. Thank you. Okay, please administer the oath of affirmation.
Please state your full names for the record.
Matshela Koko.
Do you have any objection to taking the prescribed oath?
No.
Do you consider the oath binding on your conscience?
Yes.
Do you solemnly swear that the evidence you will give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, please raise your right hand and say, "So help me God."
So help me God.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Yes.
Chairperson, I'm going to do a recap, but also explain what we need to cover in the evidence in regard to Mr. Koko. By way of a recap, we were in Eskom Bundle 14, C, dealing with the emails exchanged between, or rather sent by Ms. Musilo Motepo to Mr. Koko. And that was in regard to various issues regarding the MSA, the cash unlocking initiatives, and certain aspects which became part of the service level agreement. And the evidence of Mr. Koko then, what remains of it, relates to the transactions, which is the McKinsey trillion transactions on the one hand, and on the other, the Tegeta transactions. And just by way of explanation, is that Mr. Koko's evidence will be given against the backdrop of these facts, which I will summarize now. On the McKinsey trillion, you have the corporate plan, for which there was the appointment of McKinsey to provide services in regard to the funding plan for the corporate plan. McKinsey was appointed, and the services were rendered with regiments. The issue is the payment of the so-called BEE partner of McKinsey after the corporate plan services related were rendered. The Chairperson will recall a 30.6 million rand payment was made, but not to regiments, to trillion. And that has been an aspect addressed with Mr. Koko previously, as well as Mr. Anuj Singh. The other aspect regarding McKinsey and Trillion relates to the service level agreement, or as they call it, the master service agreement. During the negotiations for the master service agreement, McKinsey subjected Trillion to a global assessment review. the outcome of which was negative in regard to Trillion. McKinsey then decided we will not continue our negotiations further to incorporate Trillion as our subcontractor. That contract has other difficulties related to it because, according to Dr. Weiss, he only received a copy to sign much later in September/October 2016. But by that time, he says in his affidavit, and the evidence has been shown, the contract had been terminated on 16 June 2016. As a result of the termination, a submission was made to the BTC of Eskom to settle with McKinsey and its BEE partner, without a name being disclosed. And we know from Dr. Weiss's affidavit and evidence that McKinsey never had a BEE partner in respect of the service level agreement. But payments were made that amounted to nearly 1.6 billion rand combined to McKinsey and to Trillion in respect of the master services agreement. So we would like Mr. Koko, before I move on to Tegeta, in summary, to explain these transactions, to explain these payments, because we know from the evidence that he formed part of the steering committee that was specifically dealing with the services under the so-called master services agreement. That's on that score. Then the Tegeta transactions, which we will deal with, start with the cooperation agreement. And I will go step by step once I've done this, Mr. Koko. Start with the cooperation agreement between Eskom and OCM, which gets to be terminated in June 2015, after the arrival of Mr. Molefe. Thereafter, there are meetings with Eskom officials, Mr. Koko also included, with OCM, regarding further supply of coal to Eskom, but also the acquisition of OCM by Tegeta/Oakbay, the Gupta-owned companies. There's a meeting on the 24th, which is important, 24 November 2015, where Mr. Koko is present, and he impresses on OCM officials that you must sell the assets not only of OCM, but you must sell the assets of OCH. So the scope of the assets gets widened, which was not the original offer made by Tegeta. With that, Chair, is Mr. Koko's letter to the DMR, which brings about the submission of December 2015 for the 1.68 billion rand prepayment decision, which gets to be converted into a guarantee. We will show that there are emails between Mr. Koko and one official at the DMR, Mr. Joel Rapela, before the letter to the DMR is made, before the submission is submitted to the board. And it's a discussion that leads up to this document. With that is the question of why that submission was made, the reasons for that submission. Why did the board had to decide this matter on such an urgent basis? And Mr. Koko will be given a chance to explain himself on that. There is a subsequent submission. Now it's in April 2016. This one is for an amount of 659 million rand payment to Tegeta. It's a prepayment. There's no coal yet. They're making a prepayment to Tegeta. That too will require the explanation from Mr. Koko. The treatment of Tegeta versus OCM/Glencore will come under the spotlight, particularly in regard to the penalties claim of 2.17 billion, which they sought to enforce against OCM, but changed it substantially when it came to Tegeta. And on top of that, gave Tegeta temporary reliefs, in terms of which Eskom then compromised on the quality of coal and the quantity of coal, something we don't see when it comes to OCM, particularly in respect of the cooperation agreement. And from the transactions, Chairperson, the picture that emerges is that the money that was being generated for Tegeta's benefit, for the Gupta's benefit, was meant to assist them in the acquisition of OCH, ultimately. So with that background in mind, we're going to have to see whether we can cover all these issues today with Mr. Koko.
Yeah, okay, all right. You may start, Mr. Koko. Your facial expression suggests to me you are asking to say something.
Yes, Chair.
Yes,
Chair, this is my 6th time today.
yes.
And I must tell you that for the very first time, I'm feeling aggrieved. Because after the 6 occasions, I've not told my story. I have submitted an affidavit to the Commission. I was told on the first day that I must take it as read. By the way things are going, I don't even think that my counsel will be given an opportunity to re-examine me.
He will be.
I hope he will not be told that he does not have the time. But Chair, the important issues that I
want to deal with.
I feel very strong about.
Yeah.
And the summary of Mr. Seleka
Doesn't cover you.
makes it more important. Chair, let me say this. Mr. Seleka's story of Optimum starts with a cooperation agreement. And that is because of the gossip that has been going around. And you'll find that gossip in Ms. Thulima Jonzela's report. You'll find that gossip in the outer report. You'll find that gossip in the newspapers. The story of Optimum starts much earlier than that. It starts when the deputy president, we start when Mr. Ramaphosa was the chairman of Optimum. I have requested from the legal team the hardship notice that was submitted by Glencore OCM on the 3rd of July, 2013. I got a reply back that says we've requested it from Optimum and we will give it to you when we get it. I did not want to come here today without that hardship notice. That hardship notice is very important, Chair, because the story of Optimum is the one that says there was state capture, Mr. Molefe was brought to Eskom, and when Mr. Molefe was brought to Eskom, he cancelled the cooperation agreement, he imposed penalties on Optimum, he then drove Optimum into hardship. When the actual hardship notice was in 2013, not in 2015, it's very important, Chair, that we read into what was in the hardship notice, because I'm really tired of the gossip. I'm really tired, Chair, of people listening to the gossip and ignoring the documentary evidence that is there. And one of the things we're going to do today, Chair, and you're going to be very angry with me, very frustrated with me, but I'm going to force you to work out of the documents, not out of the gossip. So I do need, and I'll be very angry if Mr. Sileke does not show the hardship notice that was submitted by Optimum Glencore on the 13th of July, 2013, that was followed by an arbitration agreement on the 12th of December, 2013. Chairman, the other thing I need to address you to is that it cannot be that witnesses come to you, to this commission, to mislead you and get away with murder. I come here to assist you to get to the truth. There are witnesses here, Chair, who come here with the intention of misleading you so that you don't get to the truth. And I really want to take you to task and say there has to be a recourse for witnesses who come here to mislead you deliberately so. And and it's very easy to show which witness has misled you deliberately. Let me give you an example. Mr. Clinton Evron never submits in this commission statements under oath. We get pushed, we get harassed to present statement to this commission under oath. And we do so because we understand why. Because we do so out of respect, and we've committed that we will assist the commission. Mr. Evron don't do that. And he lies deliberately in his statements. And Chairman, I will build up to this topic because this behavior of Optimum Glencore, it will come out when we discuss the details of Optimum. He comes here and says, Mr. Ramaphosa was never the chairman of Optimum. When I listened to him saying that, I knew he was lying. Who was the CEO of Optimum when Cyril Ramaphosa was the chairman of Optimum? It was Mr. Clinton Evron. He can't forget his boss. But he does so for a reason, Chair. And we will get into the details of why did he come to the commission to lie to you deliberately. And later, when he's shown to lie, he submits another statement to the commission and say, I made a mistake. I was misled by other things. It cannot be, Chairman.
Yes, no.
These people who come to the commission to lie, there has to be consequences. Mr. Clinton Evron lied to protect his business associate. Mr. Ramaphosa is a business associate of Glencore, and he's been protected by Glencore. I will get into the detail. It cannot be, Chairman.
No, Mr. Koko, I understand. Let me say, starting with Mr. Evron, I did previously say he needed to be approached by the legal team of the commission with regard to the issue of, I think it was in regard to an issue that was raised by Mr. Brian Molefe, namely, he was saying, in effect, if I recall correctly, that Glencore was trying to extort money from Eskom by the demands that they were making in terms of the coal price.
And I will show why he's saying that, because he's right.
Yes, and he referred to the fact that I think when Mr. Evron was giving evidence or somebody else was giving evidence some time back, I had raised the issue of why it was that Glencore had signed a coal agreement with no escalation in terms of price, no provision. And at a certain time, they were now complaining that that price was too oppressive and so on. So I couldn't understand that. I had raised that. So Mr. Mlefe went back to that and said, Chairman, this is what you raised when so-and-so was giving evidence, and it was appropriate. And then he elaborated. Following upon his evidence, I asked the legal team to obtain an affidavit from Mr. Efron with regard to, I think Mr. Brian Mlefe said they had not done due diligence, if I'm not mistaken. So I said, well, Mr. Efron must be approached to obtain an affidavit to deal with this issue, which I think was subsequently finished. But now when I say that, I must be careful because it might not be an affidavit, it might be a statement. So I might not have picked up what it was, but it was finished. And then, of course, I think he was asked to comment on Mr. Brian Mlefe's evidence about Mr. Ramaphosa having been chairman at a certain time of OCM, I think. And I think he did file an affidavit or statement, I'm not sure.
It's a statement.
And subsequently another one saying it was a mistake or whatever. So I just mentioned that, and I think I have said to the legal team arrangements should be made for him to come and deal with these matters in the hearing and give evidence. So a date hasn't been, but I think I have said that to the team. So so I thought, let me clarify that in the first place. Secondly, you will be given a chance to deal with the issues that you want to deal with. It may be that at a certain stage, the Commission's legal team is questioning you on certain matters and they might not cover everything that you wish to be covered. When you answer them, just answer them in a manner that you believe is adequate to give your side of the story. But when they are done or at a certain stage, I'll give you a chance to cover whatever else might not have been covered under the questioning, which you think is important to place before me. So that chance will be given. So you don't need to be concerned about that. And if you want to expose any witnesses who have lied here, do that. It's important. Okay.
Chair, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. But there's another issue that I need to cover.
Yeah.
When I was here the last time, I made a plea. I actually asked you in earnest because there's this preoccupation of the balcony at Melrose Arch, which assumes that Mr. Masango has been to Melrose Arch only once, and therefore it becomes important. And I've shown that I've referred to the statement of Ms. Gutzel, that in fact Ms. Gutzel was introduced to Mr. Masango in his office almost 7 months later, when Mr. Masango denied that he's been there 12 months, he's ever been there again. He's lied about the meetings on the side of the road. He's lied about the meetings on March 11. But park that. What's more important for me is that I asked you, Chairman, I begged you that go to Ms. Daniel's computer. And my proposition is, based on the properties of the document of the 4 suspension letters that were made to this commission by Ms. Klein and Mr. Koza, that they actually originated from Ms. Daniels and modified by Mr. Esa. I asked you that go to Ms. Daniels' computer. It's been imaged. And my proposition is that you will find them there. and that will link Ms. Daniels to Mr. Essa. I listened to the specialist affidavit, and I was hurt when I heard him saying he does not have Ms. Daniels' computer, or he does not have Ms. Daniels' images. When I asked, and I also told you previously, that when it's matters that affects Mr. Koko, your investigators and your legal team are very quick to make a follow-up, but they've got blue-eyed weaknesses. I still don't understand why that the computer of Ms. Daniels or its images were not made available to the specialist. I think there's a deliberate, I have got a thesis why it was not done. Because they're protecting Ms. Daniels. They don't want to disturb her evidence. I can also see what they're doing. My images of my computer at Eskom should also be given to the computer expert. They must not keep it away. I've played open card with you. I've told you I've never interacted with Mr. Essa online. I've told you I've never had telephone conversation with Mr. Essa. Your commission has got all the telephone records. This commission was set up, Chair, on the basis of the telephone conversation between Mr. Molefe and Mr. Ajay Gupta. That's what Ms. Madonsela used. And all of a sudden, even Mr. Molefe was not even asked about that. I have a problem that my computer, the images of my computer, and the images of Ms. Daniels have not been made available to the expert. Because I'll tell you what's going to happen. When you get the results, they're going to say, but it's inconclusive because we did not have Mr. Koko's images. It's very clear, having listened to the expert, I mean, I'm much more convinced that those suspension letters originated from Ms. Daniels and were modified on the Apple computer of Salemisa. It's very important. Now, the second thing, Chair, that I want to bring to you, you also asked, I said to you, Ms. Daniels ought to know who she was talking to when she emailed me and copied info portal address. She ought to have known who she was blind copying, that she did not want me to know. You asked for those emails. My gut feel tells me that you don't have them as yet. And I don't understand why you don't have them as yet when then you asked your team to give them to you. But I brought them to you, Chair. I've asked my team, I've asked my legal team, Mr. Barry, if you can give them to Chair. Because my suspicion tells me that your team, I've made that proposition, that your team will not give it to you. Again, they're protecting Suzanne. And they should have given them to you. Because it's very important. The second part is the emails, is the conversation, is the transcript of Dr. Ngubani when he said he was talking to Seleke when Seleke was not even in the employ
of public enterprises.
You asked for those transcripts. Again, I suspect you don't have them.
Well, I don't remember the transcripts relating to that, but if they are available, you know, we can. I don't remember that part. Asking for that part.
I remember.
But I may have. I don't know.
You can go to the.
I've been listening to many witnesses over the past 3 years.
Mr. Seleka even said to you, "There's no point of going there."
Yeah.
He even said that. But you asked for the emails where Ms. Daniels was talking to me and blind copying. I've brought them.
Okay.
Because they will come again, Chair. They come again. Then we go to Ms. Mutepu, Chair. We spent the whole day last week, or when I was here, the whole day, going through emails, 7 emails. And the theory of Mr. Seleka is that he'll go through the emails and he'll link me to McKinsey, and we'll finish it off now. And then yesterday, Yesterday afternoon, I get an affidavit from McKinsey from the legal team dealing with those 7 emails. And I hope we'll get to it. And all what McKinsey is telling you is that the negotiations of the MSA started in July 2015 to November 2015, and Mr. Koko was never involved in those negotiations. That's the affidavit that comes from McKinsey yesterday. And yet we sat here going through Ms. Mutepu's emails, saying Mr. Koko was a lead negotiator. And here comes the lead negotiator from McKinsey saying, I negotiated this contract. Mr. Koko was never here. Chairman, these are the type of weaknesses.
But you must
That I have a
credit
problem.
the legal team in regard to that affidavit from McKinsey, because they would be the ones who obtained it, and it kind of supports you.
And I accept that. All that I'm saying to you is that why would a witness come to you and present emails to you that I've never replied to and say Mr. Koko was a lead negotiator when the lead negotiator on the other side said I negotiated this contract, Mr. Koko was never involved. These are the type of witnesses, Chair, that are not helping you get to the truth. There are things, Chairman, that I know personally, that I know exactly what happened, that I can easily assist you. But you're not assisted because other witnesses are trying to take you elsewhere.
But it's important that you provide your assistance as well, because if you don't, then the story is one that you believe is not true. So it's important that I get all sides. But I want to talk about the issue of computers and imaging of computers. Well, let me say this. It may be that you will know that the investigators had obtained some investigators' opinion about those pre-suspension letters. But I think after you had raised the issue of Ms. Daniels and the need to check, I said to the legal team they need to obtain another opinion so that we see whether it is to the same effect or different effect, and that led to the specialist. But you would have heard that I wasn't happy that certain things had not been covered during the evidence of that specialist. As a result, you would have heard that the arrangement was that he needed to go back and deal with certain matters, and the arrangement is that he will come back. Now, but I want to have this issue dealt with and finalized, and I'm thinking that the way to do it, Mr. Seleka, I wonder whether your junior or somebody, or the investigators, if they are here, if they can get hold of the specialist concerned,
Yes.
and get hold of Ms. Sharon van Rooyen. She is one of the senior, she's one of the people in the leadership of the investigation team. And if they could come here, maybe at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock, what I would like to happen is that in your presence and in your presence, Mr. Koko and his legal team can articulate to the investigators exactly what he says in his view should be looked into, so that if there is a problem with doing it, it can be addressed. They can raise the challenges there and then.
Yes.
Hopefully, at the end of that discussion, there would be clarity in terms of what is possible, what is not possible, and that which is possible will be done within what time. So that's what I would like to see happen. So that Mr. Koko and his legal team are there to convey to the investigators what he is conveying, to say this and that and that and that, because certainly there should be no perception that the Commission doesn't want to look into certain matters that should be looked into. So that's what I'm suggesting. Yes. Mr. Koko, would that be fine with you?
Chairman, that will be fine. There's a document, my council call it a wish list.
Yes.
And that is a document that Ms. Daniels says I brought to her, and it had my handwritten notes.
Yes,
to
yes,
it.
yeah.
I mean, again,
yeah,
it's as simple as that. If it's
yeah.
my document, it will be found on my computer.
Yeah, okay.
It's 2015.
Yeah.
It will be found on the computer. Look for it.
Yes.
Chair, the last thing I want to say is that we received the statement that was made to the Hawks by Ms. Alana in 2018. Now that I've interacted...
So that from Travel Excellence.
From Travel Excellence. Now that I've interacted with it, I now understand that it's not helpful to the Hawks. But we've asked for the originals.
Yes.
We still have not received them.
Yeah, yeah.
It was a very false affidavit that borders on perjury and misleading the end of justice, and is one of the weaknesses I need you to deal with. Ms. Alana cannot come here and deliberately lie to you. But to remedy that, the Commission, I think your investigators realized that it's a hot potato. They went to outsource another affidavit from Suleiman, which is equally, in my view, intends to mislead you and has perjury in it. And we'll get to it, and we'll get to it when we get to those details. But Chairman, people cannot come here and deliberately lie to you and get away with it. I don't come here to lie to you. But the Travel Excellence people, like Mr. Clinton Efrons, like Susan Daniels who lie, cannot come here and lie and get away with murder.
No, that's fine. It's important that if you believe that the evidence they give in their affidavits and whatever is not true, you give the evidence that would contradict them. I wanted to say, Mr. Koko, and I know that the last time you were here, I did say something about this. I am keen to make sure that every concern you have raised, we have been able to apply our minds to it. If we think it has merit, we address it. If we take a different view, you are told we have looked at this, we don't agree, every one of them. As I said earlier on, I do the same with other witnesses. I've done the same with Mr. Brian Molefe in regard to Mr. Efron. I'm doing the same with regard to Mr. Montana, who was here yesterday. So when people have got concerns, they are free to raise their concerns. And I want the legal team, I want the investigators to look at those properly. And in the end, I want to be satisfied that those concerns have been looked at. If they have merit, something must be done. If there If they don't agree, we know why they don't agree. So, so last time I think we talked about the issues that had been covered in your attorney's letter some time back. So if there are other concerns that you have previously articulated, and you know that to your knowledge they have not been addressed, please feel free to raise them again as we go along. And the idea is that they need to be given attention, whether they will agree with you or not, but they need to be given attention. Where it looks like there should be further action, there should be further action. If it doesn't appear that further action is justified, that's fine, but at least you must know what has happened to those concerns.
Mr. Chairman, I feel I'm being listened to, so I appreciate that. Just on the lighter note, there's a News 24. It's running a series called Eskom Files.
Yeah.
And it's putting names of people there, which are the names of the people that I've listed. And they're talking about 178 billion rand rigged tender. Now, Chairman, I've always said my blood is blue. The problem of Eskom today is the 450 billion rand debt that it accumulated through its build program. And many South Africans were looking at this commission and say it will say something about the real Eskom problem. I mean, I'm on record to say the only way you can solve Eskom problem is to take at least 250 billion rands of its debt and put it into sovereign debt. This commission is going to finish its work without addressing the real Eskom problem. I think the scholars in the future are going to look at you and worry about you.
Well, we must tell now the scholars, Mr. Koko, that maybe it's because the commission didn't get there because maybe Mr. Koko didn't respond to my call in 2018 to say everyone who has got information that falls within the terms of reference, please come forward. Okay, all right.
Understood, Chair.
Yeah.
I've distracted you. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Okay, Mr. Seleka.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I didn't hear part of the Dr. Ngubane issue, but maybe I will get to it in due course, Mr. Koko.
Well, it was simply this. Mr. Koko said, Dr. Ngubane, Mr. Koko said, I asked for a transcript of conversations between Dr. Ngubane and Mr. Seleke. Oh. And he was saying he suspects that I have not been given those. Yeah. So I just said I don't have a recollection of that. That's what you said, Mr. Koko. Is that right?
Correct, Chair.
Yeah.
Yes, no, Chair. I confirm that that request. I also do not have any recollection of it. But let's cut to the chase, Mr. Koko. Mr. Koko, in regard to let me start with the corporate plan, but I'm going to an answer which you gave me, not to go into the details of it. Remember, in regard to the corporate plan, I told you about the evidence of Ms. Tolofelo Molefe, who said that in 2014, when she was doing the budget, she was being told that the minister said the budget is not robust enough. And as a result, Mr. Colin Matshela offered to make her meet with what turned out to be Mr. Salim Essa, who offered to help them with the balance sheet optimization and cash unlocking initiatives. But instead of doing a proposal, they gave a draft agreement, and she didn't agree with that. They didn't get, Mr. Salim Essa didn't get what he wanted at the time. And he had told Ms. Molefe that when he was asked about whether you have capacity, said that, yes, we work with McKinsey from time to time. You recall that?
I do, Chair.
And your response was, well, McKinsey doesn't need regiments to get work at Eskom.
That was my response, Chair.
Yes. But I think the point I was making to you was different. It was that regiments needed McKinsey to get work at Eskom. And this is what was happening. That regiments was approaching Eskom and saying, we have the capacity of McKinsey with us. You could give us the work and we will do the work. So it's just the other way around.
Yeah, except that it does not make sense, Chair. I've told you that McKinsey has been in Eskom, as far as I remember, since what we call Project AA2. Project AA2 was led by Mr. Thulani Kabashe in 2005 to 2007. Chairman, I sound and look old when I talk about Eskom issues. My association with Eskom is 33 years. Thulani Kabashe brought McKinsey into Eskom in 2005, 2007 Eskom. And up until 2013, I do not remember McKinsey tendering for a job at Eskom. For lack of a better word, McKinsey was a captive, Eskom was a captive market for McKinsey. Chairman, I grew up to have a very good appreciation of McKinsey. I like their competencies. And in certain instances, I was the one who brought them into specific projects on a sole source basis. And I was not the only one. The Top Engineers Program is my program. I started it in 2011, 2012. It matured. The first cohort was 2013, 2014. And I had a big dream. And my dream was simple. I said to the McKinsey, the top men in McKinsey, you've been doing business in Eskom for a long time. And I want to have a difficult conversation with you. And this conversation is the one that says, at that point, and it's not a joke, Chair, at that point, Eskom was spending close to 5 billion rands a year on consultants. Yeah. And McKinsey was having a big share of it. I said, I want to give you a contract to train and build my top engineers. And those top engineers, we will call them top engineering consultants, and they will replace you.
So, sorry.
So they, and I'm going long, but that's the point. So I struggle to see why McKinsey would want to take along regiments.
I think, Mr. Selega, it's the other way around.
Yes.
You should be saying you don't understand, if that is the case, why the regiments would approach Eskom for work and say we'll rely on McKinsey.
That's my point.
Yeah.
Exactly. I struggle to see how regiments will come to Eskom and say, give me work, I've got McKinsey.
Well, wouldn't they do that, Mr. Koko, if they know that you want to give opportunities to black firms, black companies, and they say we are black? We see that you know McKinsey. They've been doing a lot of work for you, so we know you can trust them. But now we want you to give us work, but you will have the comfort of knowing that behind us, we've got people whose experience and competence you trust. The only difference now is that they will come behind, we will be at the front, whereas all along they've been in the front and they've been alone.
No, Chair, we will not do that. We will contract with McKinsey.
Yes, but I'm asking whether there would be anything wrong if their reasoning was along those lines,
Yes.
whether or not
Oh,
Eskom
no.
would agree.
Chairman, I would not even entertain that.
Yes,
I
yes,
would, it's hogwash, actually.
yes,
It's nonsense.
yes.
I will not entertain that.
Yes.
I will say,
Why?
I will say to them, I will contract with McKinsey.
Yes,
McKinsey brings different BEE players
yeah,
to Eskom. I will not tell McKinsey who to bring.
yes,
McKinsey, the company I was very familiar with, that McKinsey used in Eskom, and that in most of the times, in most of the material times, McKinsey was Eskom. It's a company called McKinsey Letsema.
yes.
So
So they've, for some time, they had been bringing
Yeah.
BEE partners.
yes, they
Yeah,
bring, and they bring
Zimmer.
different partners.
Yes,
So
yeah.
I would not accept
Yes,
somebody who say, give me a job, I will bring
yes.
McKinsey.
That is now, is that because McKinsey's expertise and experience was at a certain high
Richmond is
level?
not McKinsey, man.
No, everybody would understand that, but I mean, you had said, I imagine, McKinsey, you must bring a BEE partner.
Yes.
Okay. So in that scenario, McKinsey is the main
Yes.
contractor.
Yes.
Okay. So at what stage, in terms of your own approach, would you allow the situation to start being reversed, where you can see black firms being brought in to be the main contractors?
Chair, my game plan was simple.
Because, maybe let me finish, because I imagine that when one talks about BEEs and transformation and so on, and when you say a white firm must bring a BEE partner, the idea must be that the BEE partner must actually get exposure and
Must transition.
experience and transfer of skills. There must come a time at some stage where that BEE partner can contract with Eskom without the white contractor. So now, that's why I'm asking you the question. If you say that you would never contract with regiments or Trillion in that situation because there is McKinsey, at what stage must the black firms always be brought in by the white contractors, or there would come a time where you can say, I can teach the white contractor, I can teach McKinsey, because there is a black firm that has got expertise and experience that are fine for this job. Or you could say the two can partner, but they can come as equal partners now. Now, the black firm doesn't have to be, just be brought along. They can come as equal partners to Eskom. So at what stage would that happen?
Yeah, Chair, yes. We had done something beautiful at Eskom. And one of the things that hurt me was listening to Mr. Mabuza sitting here and saying the top engineers program never existed. So I sat with my team in McKinsey, and I looked at the scope of consulting engineers, and we came to a conclusion that we actually need 100 top consultants at the level of McKinsey, in-house in Eskom. And we set a development program, and we selected them, and we actually seconded them to McKinsey to train as McKinsey partners. And they worked with McKinsey wherever they went. I remember they spent a lot of time at Petro SA. And at one point, I think when I left Eskom, they were around 30, and we were growing them to 100. And my expectation was that by the time we get to 100, the 5 billion rands that we spend into Eskom, we will not spend it anymore, we'll do the work in-house. That was my plan. So I did not expect trillion or regiments to transition to contract directly with us. In fact, my plan with the top engineers was to do everything in-house. And that arose and was made more important by the National Treasury's practice note.
You see, I understand that completely, and I think it probably is quite commendable that to aim for that objective. And it's good for Eskom. But talking about transformation in general and not focusing on Eskom, the question I had put to you is, why would you not reach a stage where you can say, I can contract directly with a black firm and not have a white firm, or have both of them come to Eskom as equal partners? So I'm going back to the question.
Let me answer you directly, because we've done something about it.
Yes, yeah.
We've done it in the engineering space, and we've done it in the management space. So we had a tender, for example, on both engineering and management space, and we call them panels. Panel A will be the McKinsey's international guys. We'll have panel B and panel C.
Should put them in panel B.
No. What I'm saying to you is, no, Chair. No, Chair. We had a process where the panel C's will transition to panel A. So I had.
So there was a plan for growth.
Yes.
And upgrading.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I know. If you go into the engineering space, they will tell you, we came in as panel C's, now we're in panel A. Now we're competing with everybody else.
Yes. So I guess your answer, therefore, is to my question, yes, they would reach a point where we could contract as Eskom with a black firm without a white
certainly.
contractor. Yes,
certainly.
Yes. And would you also answer in the affirmative to say we could have a situation where they come as equal partners?
In fact, McKinsey will testify, if you put it to them, that when you realize that when the Eskom procurement says 30% to BEE, and I've always pushed them to 50-50. Says you must come in, go select a competent black consulting company and come 50-50 with them. I experienced a lot of pushback most of the time, and I did not succeed. But in one or two instances, I have.
So I guess that maybe this might be a revision of your previous answer when you said no, you would not contract with regiments or trillion. You would contract with McKinsey.
At that stage, regiments was not at that level.
Yes, no. Your answer should be, in principle, you would have no problem with contracting with trillion or regiments or a black firm if you were satisfied that they have the expertise and experience.
Of course.
So it's just that this particular one, you knew that they did not have that.
I did not even know them, Chair.
Oh, you did not even know them? Yeah. Okay.
I did not even know them.
Yeah, okay. All right. Okay.
The first regiment person that I interacted with was Mutepu.
Yes.
And let me tell you, she came across as a very I don't want to come out bad. I don't want to do harm to her.
Well, you had good things to say about your impression of her.
Yes,
yeah.
and that's why I don't want to be misunderstood. She came across as very potential, but not there yet.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Selega, I don't know whether in the process your question was answered, but I may have taken Mr. Koko to other issues.
Yes, yeah. Now, let's see, Mr. Koko, because You see, what I was putting to you is a witness version, not a hypothetical situation. So the witness says, Mr. Matshela invited me to a meeting. In that meeting, Mr. Salim Essa showed up. Mr. Salim Essa was offering to do this service. I asked him whether they have capacity. His response was, we work with McKinsey from time to time. It's not hypothetically a hypothesis I'm putting to you. It's a version of this witness that Regiments was making this offer to Eskom against the background of having McKinsey as their partner.
Yeah. And in terms of timeframes, do you want to just say when that was?
I remember that
is,
What was the?
that is around April
It
2014.
was 2014, Chair.
Okay,
I
all
remember that incident.
Okay.
I remember this incident well because I was a procurement person.
Yes.
And I was one of the persons that Ms. Molefe shared the experience with. And Chair, contrary to many stories, you know, I listened to the president talking about deployment and state capture. I was interviewed for my job by Mr. Matuna, Mr. Marokani, and Ms. Molefe. I was not.
You mean you were not recommended by the deployment committee?
I was not recommended by the deployment committee. I did not work for the ANC, I worked for the state.
Yes, but of course, the president did say that the deployment committee, when it comes to SOEs, only make recommendation on his version, in regard to CEOs and I think members of the board, of boards.
Yes.
So he restricted it to that level.
Yeah, Chair, I would have been aggrieved if I was a product of a political affirmation. I worked over 30 years of my life. I was recognized by my peers globally as a leader in engineering field. I was a corporate consultant at Eskom. I was the most senior engineer at Eskom. Nobody was higher than me in engineering. And I'll be very aggrieved. Let me put it this way. I worked for the state. I did not work for the party.
Yeah.
But Chair, I remember Ms. Mulife's story.
Evidence, yeah.
Evidence. And not, I may have missed the evidence, but I know the story very well.
Okay, yes.
And at that point, I'm one of the people who supported her, that show these people the finger. Process-wise, we can't do what they want us to do. And I was proud that he was able to pull it through. And it was very difficult. I remember her meeting with the board members, and I'm happy at that time, Mr. Mkonazi supporting her and Ms. Boni Masomako, Dr. Boni Masomako, Dr. Masomako supporting her. And she did the right thing. I would have done the same thing.
Yes. But then, Mr. Koko, after she was essentially removed as the CFO, as the FD of Eskom, in 2015, we see that Regiment is able to partner with McKinsey and do exactly what they sought to do under her tenure, which is this funding plan in respect of the corporate plan. And that appointment of McKinsey, you signed the letter. McKinsey then partnered with Regiments, and Regiments rendered services which, on Ms. Mosilo's version, these are services that we had to go to Eskom officials to help us do this funding plan. That's Regiments. On the other hand, McKinsey official says, we had not been contracted before to do corporate or the funding plan for the corporate plan. Eskom's officials had done it all the time. So they had the capacity to do it. But here under your watch, with Mr. Singh, Regiment gets the contract. How do you explain that to the chairperson?
Chairman, I'm glad this question is raised. Mr. Seleka says, under your watch, regiments got a contract with Eskom. Chairman, on the 29th of June, 2015, NERSA made a determination to reject the Eskom application for the what we called a selective reopener. I said previously when I was here that up to that time, the business plan that Mr. Seleka is talking about was based on what we call a cost-reflective tariff. So all what it meant is that Eskom will have a wish list. That wish list will be translated into cost, and all those costs will be covered by the tariff, the cost-reflective tariff. That's a business plan that that Mr. Seleka is talking about. Post 28 June 2015, when NERSA rejected a selective reopener of 52.8, Chairman, I brought the announcement for NERSA because if Mr. Seleka did not raise it, I was going to raise it. That's part of my story, and my counsel has it as well. Eskom could not rely on the tariff to cover its wish list. So we needed a mindset change that says instead of a corporate plan that is based on a cost-reflective tariff, we need a corporate plan that is based on the design to cost. And that cost is the cost that NERSA gives us. It's a big mind shift. It says, Eskom, forget what you want, man. Forget your wish list. The regulator gave you the cost. Design your operations within that cost. Eskom has never done that. So whoever says Eskom people are capable of doing that is it's not supported by the cost, by the evidence. So we, prior to that.
So there was a new way of doing things.
Exactly.
As dictated by the regulator.
Exactly.
Previously, things had been done differently.
Yes. You know, it's like your son coming, my son coming back from school, he says, I want this, I want this, I want that. And then I come back and say, you know what, Pierre, my son is Pierre. I used to work for Eskom. Eskom used to pay handsomely. You could afford to go to Dubai with your mom. This time you can only go to Swaziland because I don't work. You're going to have to live within my cost. It was a painful process. And let me tell you, there was a big pushback from Eskom. Because Eskom people, Eskom mindset, you see it even today. Eskom mindset is and Chairman, the optimum proposal that Mr. Seleka is so passionate about will present this opportunity to deal with. Eskom's my ideas is always, listen, we're a government-owned entity. We can take the optimum proposal, however expensive it is. The government will fight with us, but ultimately they will bail us out. Government will always bail us out. Government has always bailed us out. You know, there's a case now, and Chairman, this is where I get upset. And there's a case now similar to Optimum, similar to Glencoe. It's called South 32. South 32 is now a Seriti. They go to Eskom, they've got the same fixed price contract over 40 years. Now they go to Eskom and they've learned from Seriti, they've learned from Optimum. They go to Optimum and say, we are in hardship. And we want to increase our cost from 266 rand per ton to 550 rand per ton over the life of the contract. And the numbers that I read on the newspapers is that it's going to cost Eskom an additional 40 billion rands. And Eskom is saying we must do it. National Treasury says you can't do it. So National Treasury is becoming the Koko of the time. So the problem with Eskom today, and the problem with the team that Mr. Seleka is talking about, is that they worked on the basis that says, listen, it's a matter of time. They will get angry. They will insult us. But when the tire hits the road and they see the lights going off, they will bail us out. I came back from suspension. I got the message very clear. Chairman.
Okay, can we deal with that later, Mr.?
No, we can't. This is at the heart of it. Because the corporate plan, all what the corporate plan meant was go and design your operations to fit to the cost of NERSA. So there was a need, one. Two, and Chairman, my council also brought the minutes, and we will not go home. We will even sleep here until you look at those minutes of the 26th of February 2015 that deals with the financial position of Eskom. We will also look at the minutes of the 22nd of July 2015. I know them, I lived them, I managed them. They're on my fingertips. We then had to contact McKinsey that we have been developing this on the sidebar and brought it on the center line. We contracted with McKinsey. We did not contract with regiments. So I take exception that Mr. Seleka has put to me that under your watch you contracted with regiments. I did not contract with the regiments. I contracted with McKinsey. I put a requirement to McKinsey that 30% of your work must be on a BEE partner. At that point, the letter that I signed, again on the 29th of September 2015, did not say to McKinsey, I'm contracting to you the 30% must be regiment. It did not. It could have been Litsima regiment.
Well, I'm not sure that I understand why the Eskom team that had always worked on the basis of what you refer to as the wish list, why, if they had the right technical qualifications and experience, they wouldn't be able to work on the basis of a certain cost determined by the regulator to say, this is the cost. Whatever you do, you must know this is the cost. Are you able to throw light on that?
Yes. Yes. It's a legacy issue. Eskom, there's a monster called electricity pricing policy. The electricity pricing policy says that Eskom costs have to migrate to a cost-reflective tariff. I think they give time over 5 years. Now, the Eskom people have taken that to heart, and they would resist anything that deviates to the electricity pricing policy. So when you go to them and say, guys, here is the MYPD3. The MYPD3, we had requested revenue of 1.1 trillion rands. NERSA has granted us 885 billion rands of that 1.1 trillion rands. We are now short 225 billion rands. So ordinarily, if we assume that we have a very competent regulator, the regulator has competently decided that we must live over the MYPD3 period with 885 billion rands and not 1.1 trillion rands. The big push within Eskom that says NERSA is mad. NERSA is mad. We will rather go to court, if needs be. And you have that big pushback. And I used to say to Brian and others that, you know, one of the things we needed was an external person who has not grown within Eskom, but technically was competent to say, guys, we have a regulator. The regulator is competent. The regulator is looking at the interest of the consumer and the interest of Eskom. He's looked at our use list, he's listened to the consumers, he's made a decision. Have a mindset change. Change, smell the coffee. Chair,
So it was a question of mindset.
it's a mindset change.
So you are saying that they were too used to doing things in a certain way, and that had resulted in a certain mindset, which would have made it difficult for them to deal with this post the regulator's determination properly.
Exactly. And we did not have time, Chair. Remember that we had to submit the business plan in February 2016. And the board meeting that took that decision was on the 22nd of July. And we had to do all that and submit the business plan by February. We just did not have the time. The Eskom people, once the term I used at Eskom, once you become unreasonable with them, eventually they see the light. Eventually they see the light that this person is not going to change.
Okay. We're at 25 past. Do you want to use the last 5 minutes and then we take the tea?
Indeed, Chair. That was going to be my proposal.
So, Chair, I take exception that I contracted with regiments under my watch. I object to that. I contracted with McKinsey, and I did not tell McKinsey who they must bring. They could have easily brought in Itsima. They could have easily brought in anybody.
Yeah, I don't think Mr. Seleka said you contracted with regiments. I think he still said you contracted with McKinsey. But
Yes.
why must I speak for him?
Yes, Chair. Thank you. The fact of the matter is, your appointment of McKinsey, Mr. Koko, that appointment ultimately led to McKinsey bringing regiments on board. I've got two more questions for you, and then we move on. One arises from that list you were talking about, you and Ms. Suzanne Daniels. And Chair, I want us to quickly go there.
Yeah.
Because Mr. Koko has said his handwriting that is his handwriting on that list. And that's Eskom Bundle 8. Bracket A on page 87.88. .88. And Mr. Koko, can I explain, because I don't know the basis on which you say I'm passionate about the optimum proposal. And you taking exceptions to some of the questions put to you. The questions are meant to give you the opportunity to respond to what appears from the evidence to be what took place. Sorry? .88. 87.88. .88.
00 or 08.
Well, I think we must just take the tea break. Yeah, because it's taking long to. Let's take the tea break. You will deal with the questions when we come back. It's now past, so it's taken 5 minutes. So they can look for the right page during the tea break. So when we come back, you can then pose the questions.
Thank you, Chair.
Let's take the tea break. We'll resume at 11:45.
Thank you,
We
Chair.
adjourn.
There's too much noise.
Okay, let's continue.
Thank you, Chairperson. Yes, Chairperson, just before we adjourned, I was referring to page 87.88 on that Eskom bundle 8, Mr. Koko. Just maybe one question, Mr. Koko, from this. Against the project named Project Libra Anglo, there is a handwriting there we could buy. But since it's your handwriting, maybe you can help us there. Then there's TBC, and the handwriting again says, give me a fixed price, I give you the partner. Could you explain to the chairperson what you meant about this, and to whom was the statement directed?
Excellent. Chair, for one of my sins, I did a concept design that cited Kusile where it is. So when our grandchildren grow up, they will be told it was Mr. Koko who decided, amongst others, that that power station is sited there. And there was a reason for that. And that reason was no different to what Eskom has done in the past. You look for where the coal is, you find the coal, and that's where you build a power station. And then you build a power station, you build a mine, you put a conveyor, you transport the coal via the conveyor. It's always cheaper to put coal on a conveyor than to put it on the road. That is the only reason why Kusile is there. The coal field that is there was owned by Anglo-American and was called New Lago. One of the mistakes we did, and there's a reason for that, but it's not for this purpose, was that we built a power station before the mine was built. That normally you don't do. Normally you complete the mine and then you build a power station. And the power station was built, and then we started the discussions to develop the mine. And one of the discussions Mr. Anders brought to me was the development of New Lago. And there were prior discussions between Mr. Marokani, who was doing the job before me, and Minister Gigaba, and they were prolonged. And basically there was nothing happening. But this note was saying before I go to the next, then we have an industry that we developed in 2008 on the basis of the 2008 coal mandate, which we'll come to when we deal with together. We had 2,000 trucks on the road. Two problems with them. They were very expensive and they were killing people on the road. The fatalities of non-Eskom employees on the road were just too high and they were just too expensive. So we started building a line. We call it a Majuba rail line. And it was under the project called Road to Rail Migration Strategy. So we were building a rail load to Majuba, and we were removing, and the plan was that once that rail is removed, we will remove the trucks from the road to rail. Now, and here is the issue that was pertinent at this time. What do we do with the coal truckers, 2,000 a day of them, once we are finished with this line? We've created this industry. We need a just transition. That's the term I used. We need a just transition that we build the road, the rail, we put coal on the rail, but we find something to do for these coal truckers, which had organized themselves under a organization, they call it TCF, Coal Transportation Forum. So
Now,
so-
the truckers did that refer to the owners of the trucks or the drivers or the
no,
workers?
the owners of the trucks.
The
The
owners.
owners of
Okay.
the trucks. The
Okay.
owner of the trucks. So now, when Ms. Daniel came to me with New Lago, she wanted to do a cost plus mine, like we've done with others. I said, no, not a chance, not in my time. I listened to Mr. Clinton Evron taking you for a ride. It's amazing when you don't come from this industry, how people who are the benefactors take you for a ride, trying to justify to you that the cost plus mines in today's terms are the best for Eskom. In my affidavit, when I wrote my affidavit, I was saying to my wife, I'm writing a thesis in my affidavit so that the engineers that are starting to work at Eskom today, when they lay their hands on my affidavit, it's a thesis for them. I write a lot, I like writing. So they must learn something out of it. So I devoted a chapter and a verse in my supplement, in my main affidavit about the value of cost plus mine and a fixed plus mine. That the fixed plus mine only made sense in that time when Eskom's sovereign rating was in the time when Eskom trade rating was better than the sovereign rating, and Eskom cost of capital was cheaper. So Eskom can then raise capital and build a mine. It made sense then. I can tell you now, Chair, there will not be another cost plus mine. There will never. Right.
Because it would be more expensive.
Because it will be more expensive. The people who say to you cost plus mines are better is the Clinton Evrons, because they're the benefactors. Is the Exodus, they're the benefactors. But let me tell you, whether they like it or not, the economics will dictate. Eskom will never have another cost plus mine. And this is the note here. I'm saying to Suzanne, give me a fixed price. I mean, we're not doing any cost plus mine here. The only time Eskom will do New Lago is not in a cost plus mine, it's on a fixed price. But go and tell Anglo, we'll give them a partner. We'll give them a partner. And we will follow the process. But that partner will be those 2,000 truck owners that are driving that we have on the road every day, that we are going to remove once the rails are finished. We can't leave them. We can't leave them on the streets. We have to create, there are 2,000 truck drivers a day. Each driver multiplied by 2 or 3 will be about 3,000 households, plus the owners of the truck. We can't leave them on the streets. So I was very passionate about this, and it collapsed after I left. That we're going to take these people. I've done the same with Arnold. I'll tell you about Arnold. We're going to take all these truck drivers, these truck owners and drivers. They must organize themselves into a company, and they are going to own New Lago with Anglo-American. They're going to be the BEE of New Lago. That's the partner. Just to divert quickly, I've done the same on Arnold. And I see in the affidavit of Mkojo, he writes about it, he doesn't tell the truth. When we chose Arnold and there was a Moefontein surface right, I said to Exaro, take the former Exaro employees, put them into a company, let them own the company. I will then make sure they get the contract. They are there now. And it's one of the legacy projects I'm proud of. Eskom must just give them the contract. Then you've got the employees who work the mine being the owners of the mines. It will be a great pleasure. It will be a great pleasure for me to have these owners of 2,000 truck drivers being the BEE of Anglo-American on a fixed cost mine. So the question is, who did I direct it to? I directed this to Anglo-American. They must give me a fixed price. I will give them a partner, and the partner will be the owners of the trucks that we will remove
Just face the
the,
chairperson.
the partner will be the TCF, which are the owners of the truck drivers that we will remove on the road when Majuba Rail is fixed.
Okay, just repeat who you directed it to.
This is directed to Anglo,
Anglo, who were the owners of.
Yulago.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
You give me a fixed price. I will not do a cost plus mine. You give me a fixed price. And I'll give you a partner. And the partner will be with these truck drivers. This industry that I've built that will be redundant. Not all of them will be redundant because not all the coal will be going to Majuba, but 90% of the coal is going to Majuba. Majuba is a power station that does not have a mine.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So, Mr. Koko, what you're telling the chairperson is that you would give ABEE partner to Anglo.
Correct.
I thought that's something you don't do, according to your evidence earlier.
Chair, we don't do it. We generally don't do it. In my lifetime at Eskom, there were 2 instances in my 25-year life at Eskom. In fact, there's only one, not 2. This would have been the second one. No, this would have been the first one. The Arnold one was the second one. So we've done it only twice. We'll do it only twice, and the first one was Arnold, and this will be the second one. And there's an operation needs for that. I mean, take Arnold, for example. Arnold had a coal supply agreement with Eskom for 40 years. For 40 years, we had Arnold employees there. Now the contract comes to an end. It's not cancelled. So you see in the affidavit of Mr. Mkojo, you say it's cancelled. It's not cancelled. 40 years has come, it comes to an end. What do you do with the people that are there that have been part of Arnold for 40 years?
Well, bearing in mind that these are, I assume, business people, the truckers.
Of course.
Yes, these are business people. Why should you, as Eskom, decide that they should be partners to a particular transaction, to a particular project? Why should you not allow a situation where they compete with whoever to be partners? And then whoever succeeds. It could be them, it could be somebody else, as long as there are justifiable reasons for the one who succeeds, then that's fine.
Chair, this is not Eskom. It's not Eskom.
Yes.
So it is not Eskom. We, if we had to implement this, we would have to go through the governance process, and this type of a transaction will need a Section 54 notice with the National Treasury's approval. So it would have to be approved along these lines. So it's not, Eskom has not made this decision. These are my ideas that I would have to motivate to the board and finally National Treasury. But I felt that we have an obligation of creating a business continuity for this industry that will just collapse.
But I would have thought that your approach ought to be whoever we can't determine in advance who should be the BE partner, okay? But all we can do is insist that there should be a BE partner. But how that BE partner is selected is none of our business. Maybe I'm putting it not in the best way, but as long as maybe the best that you could do is to alert them that is the truckers, that this is what's going to happen. You might wish to put yourselves in a position where you would compete with whoever if there is to be a partner that will be taken, a PE partner.
Chairman, that's how we operated.
Yes.
That principle we applied. We would resist imposing BEE partners on any supplier of Eskom. There have been attempts to force us in that direction, and it would not fly.
Rejected that.
We rejected that.
Yeah.
We would not do it. The case of New Lago, and I'll not talk about Arnold because it will look like a distraction. I don't want to look like it to be distracting. Was unique. For some reason, and before my time, we created this industry. And it was not created out of a competitive environment. Right? There was nothing competitive about when it was created. And on many occasions, we wanted to stop it because it was not even cheap. You may remember in one State of the Nation address, they blocked Pretoria. They've done that twice.
I seem to remember at some stage in the news and TV.
Yes, they've done that. They've done that twice. One of the fallout I had with the primary energy group executive, which eventually led her to resign, was the manner in which the coal transporters were handled, because they had the potential of seriously destabilizing Eskom's operations. They were a pain. And we, at a personal level, have been managing generation, or going to manage generation at that time. I knew that one of the things I have to do quickly was to make sure that the construction of Matshela Rail get finished as soon as possible. And that's close to 14 million tons of coal a year. And one of my key success factors was to get the Matshela Rail done. It's not done even now, by the way. It's an indictment. It is not done. But I did not want to spend a lot of time dealing with the after effects of the Matshela Rail with the truckers. I did not want to do that. And when I was talking to them, and I talked to them, by the way, I said, guys, this thing, and I started that conversation with them, Matshela Rail is going to happen, guys, whether you like it or not. And there's been toys about Matshela Rail. I say, hey, you can toy with Matshela Rail. It's a business imperative. I am going to do it. But there's a silver lining for you. Organize yourself. There's New Lago coming. It's the same industry. You capable, you will do that. Now, Chair, like I am saying to you, it's not, we don't give PE partners to Eskom suppliers. We don't do it. But I thought this was an exceptional circumstances to shut them up and to give them hope.
So you say this was a deviation from the norm.
Correct.
And you say the justification was that they could destabilize Eskom's coal.
Correct.
Mr. Selega?
Thank you, Chair.
It's sad that New Lago is not developed by now, by the way. It's very sad, and I can tell you it's one of the problems why Eskom costs will continue to run away.
Yes. Was that achieved, Mr. Koko, or is that what we are saying now?
No, New Lago is not, there's no New Lago even today.
No, I'm talking the transaction here. Anglo teaming up with the partner you were suggesting.
No, Chair.
Yeah.
So a couple of things have not happened.
Say again?
A couple of things have not happened. The Matshela Rail has not happened. New Lago has not happened. And there's a stalemate with the trucks now.
I was wondering as you were explaining this, Ms. Daniel says the list is yours, you say it's hers, and you go further to say she was the one coming with this proposal of the cost plus mine in regard to that project. Would it have been in her place to do that?
Of course, yes. Chair, one of Ms. Daniel's lies.
Can I just say this so that you can comprehensively cover the question to the chairperson? Remember, this is the first day of your coming from
No, it's
suspension.
not the first day of coming back. That's a lie. It's not.
Yeah, let me finish. According to her evidence, that's the first day of your coming from suspension. And you have said to the chairperson that by the time you came back, she no longer reported to you. She had been moved to Dr. Ngubani's office. And it is in that context I'm asking you this question. Whether it was in her place for you even to entertain what you say she was proposing.
Yes, Chair, it was in her place. So one of the things, and I'm just answering it directly, and I want to give the chair, it was in her place. To deal with that, and to suggest that it was not here in her place, that's when she suggested that I was not her supervisor. And if I was not her supervisor, then it would not be in her place. Then she can't give me a document, she can't bring a document for me, suggesting it's from the chair. And the chair wants feedback, and then I will entertain her, because I'll tell you, but you don't work for the chairman, you work for me. I must be the one talking to the chair. You don't work for the chair. That is why she deliberately tried to lie to you. That she was, and she did that for two reasons. One was on the one to cover up on the info portal address, and the second one is this one. Because if I was a supervisor and she brings this document, I'll say, what the hell, what is this? And the chairman must come talk to me if he needs feedback from me. But now she's in the office of the chairman. Her supervisor is the chairman. It's well within her right to say, my boss wants an update on this. Then I entertain her. Because it's within her right. It's within a delegated authority to chase us around. And she was doing exactly that.
Yeah. Sorry, Mr. Koko. Let me check whether I understand you correctly. Are you now saying Ms. Daniels was coming to you with this list from the chairperson?
I've always said that, Chair. I've always said that.
So and by that what you mean is that at the time of her coming with this document to you,
Yes.
she was already working in the chairperson's
Yes.
office. Yes, and what was her position in that office again now?
Chairman, she was either still the senior manager in the chairman or the
Yeah.
company secretary.
Yeah.
This conversation happened September, April, when it was known that I'm leaving commercial.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, Chair, let me just say, I've never heard Mr. Koko saying the list came with Ms. Daniels from the chairperson.
Chairman, I've always said that. Go check the transcripts. I've always said that. I've said, she brought this to me, saying her principals are looking for feedback. And her principals is the board or the chairman. I've always said that. It's if you care to go and check
that,
if you go and check the transcripts, you'll find it.
Yeah. Because instead, her version was that it is you who said your principals have asked you to concentrate on this.
Chair, this matter can be easily resolved by just checking the transcripts.
Then,
No, I think that this last one
Yes.
is Mr. Selega saying what her version is.
No, I listened to her, I watched her, so I know her version.
Yeah.
yes. And then,
Yeah, but your junior will try and check.
yes,
Or somebody will try and check.
we will
the
check Mr.
transcripts.
Koko's version, yes.
Yeah, okay, all right.
And then, Mr. Koko, there is a name there.
So, but let's just also get this. You have said, Mr. Koko, this document, you didn't make these notes on it on the 20th of July when you came back. You say it was in September 2015.
Correct, Chair.
Okay, all right.
Chair, I use the term September, October.
Oh, September, October, okay.
It's towards, it was known already by that time
Yeah,
that I'm going to transition out of
yeah,
commercial to generation.
okay,
And the basis of this, for me, I understood it, that because I'm leaving principals, the board or the chair is looking for feedback.
Thank you, Chair. Well, my investigator has found a portion, well, the transcript where Mr. Koko talks about this on the 29th of March, 2021. Mr. Koko, I'll read, that's on page 1. I'll start on page 181 of the transcript. As I start with myself, I say, yeah, the question is simply this one. You don't deny having a meeting with Ms. Daniels in the morning of 20 July. Is that correct? And Mr. Koko says, Chair, on the morning of the 25th, of the morning of the 2015th, I have meetings with almost...
on the morning of?
Of the 2015th.
Oh,
2015.
that's how it's written.
That's how it's
okay,
written.
Okay.
I have meetings with almost all my direct reports, so I will not deny that I met Ms. Daniels on that day. I will not deny I made a point that I meet all my direct, and by the way, Ms. Daniels was not my direct report on that day, but I will not deny having met her. She was very important to my work. That I will not deny having met her. Yes, then it's me. Yes, you have said you got that list I'm talking about with the transactions, McKinsey being one of them, online vending being one of them, Duva 3 with the amounts you say you got it from her. Mr. Koko says, correct. Then I say, she said it was your list. Mr. Koko says, no, Chair, I got it from her. And I can tell you now it was, even if I met Suzanne, I don't deny meeting her on that day. In fact, I'll be very surprised that I did not meet her on that day. So for all intents and purposes, you can proceed on the basis that I met. It's unlikely that I could not have met her. So let's proceed on that basis, Chair. I'll read again Mr. Koko, he carries on. That one-pager that we are talking about never arose on that day. That one-pager arose in the second half of October when I was about to leave my job as a group procurement officer. Then I say, yes, and you know that she has given evidence by way of a supplementary submission to the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee on this very aspect. Mr. Koko says, yes, I do. And I carry on to say, and her version was, you said the list is of transactions that your principals say you must focus on. So again, I put her version to you. And Mr. Koko says, she said that at the Parliament. I think she said it here too. And your comment on that? Mr. Koko says, it's nonsense, Chair. That I can tell you, that's blatant nonsense. And then I said, but you admitted that the handwriting on that list is yours. So that's correct, Chair. That's Mr. Koko. I said, when she was here last time around, she mentioned that. Then there was an intervention there, Chair. I know I've gone through the transcripts. I haven't, well, I may be mistaken, but I haven't come across that she came with it from the chairperson.
Well, there is a part you read earlier on where Mr. Koko was saying she was not her direct, I can't remember what word.
Yes.
Direct report.
Yeah.
Yeah,
which may suggest that he was saying she was not under him at the time. There was that part. I don't know if
Yes,
you want
it is.
to go back to that part.
yes. Mr. Koko says, I met Ms. Daniels on that day. I will not deny I made a point that I meet all my direct. And by the way, Ms. Daniels was not my direct report on that day. But I will not
That's what you meant.
That's my point, Chair.
Yes, yeah. You might not, from what has been read, might not include any statement that she was already in the chairperson's office, but
Yes.
there is the part which says she was not reporting to.
That's exactly, that's what I've consistently said that.
Yeah. Okay. Of course, the one thing which emerges from that, and I just want you to comment because maybe we can get it out of the way now, is that whereas now you were saying it must have been about September, October when she came to you with this document, what was read there seems to suggest that you were saying that it can be taken that you met her in regard to this document on the 20th of July.
No, Chair.
That was my impression.
No, it's very clear there, it says October.
Was that your impression?
Chair,
Mr.
he must read again. He must read again. It clearly says October.
Just read again. I know that there might be a reference to later, but I thought most of the time it was a response to what Mr. Lega said, namely that Ms. Daniel says she met you on the 20th of July, and from what he was reading, that is Mr. Selega, it seems that you were saying you won't deny that you met on that day or something like that.
Chair, it's quite simple.
Yeah.
I am saying to you, I am saying in the transcripts, I cannot remember that I met Ms. Daniels on the 20th. But she was so important to me that it's unlikely that I did not have that meeting.
Yeah.
So let us proceed on the basis that I've met her.
Yes, yeah, you say that, yeah.
I can't imagine that I've not met her.
Yes.
But I'm also saying, on that day, she was not my direct report.
You do say that.
But I'm also saying, in no ambiguous terms, Mr. Seleka must read again, that list came to me October.
Yes.
And the reason I'm mentioning October, I'm trying to, it's a timestamp for me when I leave. I'm saying, I just said to you earlier, it's September, October, because that's when I was leaving. Can he please read it, Chair, so that we put this to bed?
If his understanding is the same as yours, it might not be necessary. Is your understanding the same as Mr. Koko's?
Yes, Chair, to some extent correct, because I put to him Ms. Daniel's version, which is that there was a meeting in the morning of 20 July 2015, when, according to her version, she saw the list Mr. Koko holding and left it on the desk when he was called by Mr. Molefe. She then secretly made a copy and kept one. So all that, according to her, is on 20 July 2015, the first day of Mr. Koko. Mr. Koko then admits the meeting, and we should proceed on that basis, but later says in the answering that the one-pager arose in the second half of October.
Is this the one-pager?
This is the one.
Oh, okay. Maybe I may have confused that when I talk about, when you're referring to a one-pager, I think I was thinking of another document that we have dealt with under Eskom. This is the same document.
This was the document that was before you when I was answering that question.
Yes, no, that's fine. I think you both should remember another document, or was it?
It's a two-pager, that one.
Oh, that was a two-pager.
That's a two-page.
Okay.
That's in December, Chair.
That's the 10th of December. 10th of December.
No, that's all right.
Yes.
Okay, let's continue.
Then,
You know,
Mr.
there are things you can't forget in this commission. You know, one of them is the 19th of February letter.
Yeah, no, the 19th of February. Yeah, Mr. Koko, I can see you listen, you listen and watch even when you are not giving evidence.
He's studiously watching.
Yeah.
Mr. Koko, then there's a name there. On the left-hand margin towards the bottom.
Zetlo.
Zedlo, yeah.
Zetlo is still.
Which we understood from Ms. Daniels that it has been widely reported to be a company where Ms. Salim Essa's wife is a shareholder. You could maybe enlighten the chairperson.
Yes, I heard that affidavit. I was listening. Chairman, I don't remember what was this about. I don't know Zetlo Zestilo. I believe it's the Stilo. I want to check it after that. I don't have.
But is it your handwriting?
This is my writing, yes.
Oh, but you just can't remember.
No, I can't remember. But remember, Chair, what is in here was a two-way was a record of a two-way conversation. So I don't. I mean, there are things I don't even remember why I wrote. Stop paying tea guys. I don't know what.
Well, somebody, I don't know if it was you, but somebody, or was it Ms. Daniels who said tea guys may have been tea systems?
Oh, is that where you are now, Chair?
Eh?
Is that where the chair is? That was my
No,
next
I'm
question.
on the same page, what you call the one pager. But you see, there it's written, stop paying tea guys. That's
Yes,
what Mr. Koko
yes,
is referring
yes,
to.
yes.
He says he can't remember what that was about. So I'm saying to him, I think somebody has given evidence saying, if I recall correctly, that tea guys may have been a reference to tea systems.
Yeah. So.
But has Mr. Koko now finished addressing Z?
Yes, yes.
Oh,
He says.
you can remember.
It's his handwriting, but he can't remember. And I think he says he doesn't know the
I
entity.
don't know the entity, and I can't remember why it's there.
Why you wrote there.
Okay. Then the stop paying tea guys. Yes, no, the chairperson is correct. The recollection is correct. That Ms. Daniel said that this referred to tea systems.
Yeah.
She may have put it
In a speculative.
Not so confidently. She may have speculated that it could be T systems.
Chair, we never had a paying dispute with T systems.
Yes.
We never had any dispute of payment with T systems.
So you don't understand why.
So
And is that the one also your handwriting?
it's my handwriting, and there's F at the bottom. I don't know what that
F means.
What that F means.
But we can ask you a direct question, Mr. Koko. Who did you have in mind as tea guys? Stop paying tea guys.
No, I'm saying I don't know. I don't remember who they are. All that I'm telling you is that if it's T systems,
Would not make sense.
it will not make sense because and
You
this
never
is
had a pay dispute.
and this is something you can go back and check in the Eskom records. We never had a dispute with T systems.
Yes, Mr. Selega.
Yes. Shall we traverse this page last?
We mustn't.
I want to move
we
on.
mustn't repeat.
Yes. Yeah. Mr. Koko, lastly on the corporate plan.
No, before you go there, Chair, Mr. Seleke made song and dance about.
But, Chair, can I say,
I apologize.
the qualifications that I'm passionate about
I
something.
apologize, but I have to deal with this. I take it back.
Well, Mr. Selega,
I take it back.
he's apologizing now.
I take it back.
But I think.
If it will help us move,
I think some of the jabs, are meant to try and
Subdue me.
and in inverted commas to deal with you.
I meant no harm, Chair. I meant no harm.
Apology accepted.
Yeah.
Chair,
Okay.
the online vending, this commission has dealt with it for a long time, and I've taken it seriously. And I went to dig out the minutes. You'll remember it's one of the emails that I've sent to Dr. Ngubane that he's denied. And I know exactly what was going on there. And I've said to you, we had a commercial process that we ran that was untainted. It started before I was suspended. And when I came back, unbeknown to me, but I was briefed by my predecessor that there was a proposal from Blue Label. Now, in hindsight, the CEO of Blue Label was the board member of Eskom,
Mr. Mark Paminsky.
Mr. Mark Paminsky. And I always qualified, Chair, that I don't suggest any formal level of impropriety against Mark Paminsky, so please understand me. I just find it an interesting coincidence that they had decided that they will be the master vendor and they will pay Eskom upfront, and we must dispense of the process that we ran that was untainted. And my meeting with Dr. Ngubane was said, you can't do it. You just can't do it. And I suggested to you that if I was doing the bidding for the Guptas, I would make sure it happens. I've brought the minutes of the board of February 2016 that clearly says it. There was a change in strategy. That change in strategy is still not complete, and the best the board could do when the contract expired was to extend it to extend the existing contracts by a year to allow the board to sort out their new strategy that I refuse to accept. I brought them. You have to see those minutes, Chair. Now, and I am saying to you, that is not consistent with the behavior of somebody doing the bidding for an external party. That's just not consistent. And what I always try to address you on, Chair, is that there are rumors and there's evidence. Please be persuaded by the documentary evidence before you, when you finally make up your decision. There's too many rumors. I've had many rumors. But
No.
documentary evidence must be the overriding issue.
No, that's fine. Two things. You spoke earlier, much earlier, when we started about, among other things, Mr. Abraham Masango. I forgot to mention to you that I have asked the legal team to arrange for Mr. Masango to come back so that he can give evidence, but also he can be questioned about that meeting that you talked about. The meeting that I think, is it Miss Goodison or Miss Mtsepu?
Goodson.
Yeah. So I just wanted to say that I've said that should be done. Number one. Number two, I was going to say earlier on, and I didn't, that I remember that last time, among other things, you mentioned a number of things, maybe 3, maybe 4, I'm not sure, which you said which you said are inconsistent with the idea that you were doing the bidding of the Guptas or Salem S and
Correct.
so on. So you have mentioned one of them now. If at all possible, I would like you to mention those in a supplementary affidavit or document that say, here are these things that I said are not consistent with me having been doing the bidding for whatever It's just that it will be convenient. I know it will be in the transcript, but if you can do that, I would appreciate it.
Chairman, I will do that.
Yeah.
The MSA is one of them.
Okay, all right.
If
So,
I was,
but
if I-
when you
if I was doing the bidding for Mr. Essa for the MSA,
Yeah.
I would not have said to Dr. Ngubani,
Yeah.
we will not have this contract unless we get National Treasury's approval, otherwise we'll do it on the fixed cost, and it doesn't happen.
Yes, I think the other one you said was instruction, maybe inverted commas.
To boycott Sunday Times.
About the newspapers,
Yes.
City Press, Mail and Guardian, or whatever.
It did-
So put
It
an
did not, it
affidavit.
did not happen because I said I will not do it.
Yeah, that's what you mentioned. So do an affidavit and say, here are the things that are inconsistent with this idea that I was doing the bidding for the Guptas or something, and then substantiate as much as you are able to. Let's have that as a separate document.
And just to say, just for something that is controversial, we could have done these things and I could have made sure that I had done legally if I was doing the bidding for them. Because I would bring my team in, I say, we do this thing, it's legal. But I would never do such a thing. I would never clean up a mess.
Yeah. Okay, all right.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. Mr. Koko, just two things, and I want to move away from the corporate plan. So we have the evidence of Ms. Motepu.
Oh, okay. I think for some reason in my ears that came wrongly. You said you wanted to move away from the corporate plan. It sounded like you were saying you were moving away from the Koko plan. Okay, all right.
Certainly from the hand, Chair. We have the evidence of Ms. Motepu, Mr. Koko, who says the regiment had to turn.
Do I keep bundle 8?
Let's move it away, Chair.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. Can we finish?
Okay, let's continue.
It's the evidence of Ms. Motepu, who says Mr. Anand Singh had requested this funding plan to be done over the weekend. They did one, he then rejected it, and they had to turn to Eskom Treasury, specifically Mr. Andre Pillay, to help them produce this funding plan. Mr. Singh has also accepted, I can use the word conceded, before the Commission also, that the funding plan was a product.
Sorry, Mr. Koko, have you got the right file in front of you? Are you looking for the right file?
No. He's not.
He was putting away.
I was just putting away the file.
Okay.
Yes.
He doesn't need any file in front
No,
of you?
Chair.
Not now.
Not now, Chair.
Why do I need to have one then?
Not now, Chair.
Okay, continue.
Chair, we need to finish the evidence of Mr. Koko.
Okay, all right.
So Ms. Singh has also accepted to the chairperson that the funding plan was the product of collaboration between the Eskom Treasury and the officials of regiments. Do you have any comment on that? That Eskom Treasury played a part, if you take Ms. Masilo's evidence, a significant part in the final product in respect of the funding plan?
Chair, I have no personal knowledge of that, but I would be very surprised if the Eskom Treasury was not involved. It would be an anomaly.
Thank you. And you are aware that regiments was paid 30.6 million for working on that funding plan.
Chairman, I am aware that the invoice came to me and I refused to pay. I have, even before the commission, read on the newspapers that it was indeed paid.
Yes. Could you have done anything beyond just...
But I'm sorry, you said regiments was paid.
Yours, yes.
No, trillion, no,
yes.
no.
Trillion, yeah.
So can I rephrase?
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Yeah, but it started with Mr.
Yeah.
Selega.
Trillion was paid
Yes.
for the work that was allegedly done by the regiment.
Yes, no, correct. Could you have done something more than just refusing to authorize the payment? Could you have stopped based on your explanation to the chairperson of the reason why you refused Ms. Goodson's request? But we didn't have a contract with Trillion. Could you have actually gone ahead to stop that payment from being made?
No,
And what's the reason?
no. So the way Eskom works, Chair, and again, I've made this plea to you to go and get, I call it a policy in Eskom, we call it managing contracts in SEP. There's another one I will add to that. It's called accounts payable policy. That's an Eskom policy. The Eskom, both those documents will say,
Just 1 second. What I have been asking the legal team to get, and I think that arose mainly from Mr. Singh's evidence, but it might be connected with what you may have said previously also, was, I said, a document, an Eskom document that would explain who has what responsibilities in the process that leads to payment of invoices.
yeah, and those are the two documents I
Those
must
are the two documents.
Yes.
The one is
managing contracts in
managing
SEP
contracts.
and accounts payable policy.
Yes, okay. I know that you told me that you have received one of the documents, but I don't know if that's what it's called, one of these.
The accounts payable, we
You
have
got
received
that.
it.
Yes.
And unfortunately, we received, is it a statement or affidavit from an Eskom official in the wee hours of this morning?
Yes.
So we haven't shared it with Mr. Koko.
Yeah.
So accounts payable is there, and the supply chain management policy, which is the 1034.
1034.
1034.
Yes. The one
this-
about managing contracts you don't have.
No, this one we don't have.
Okay, you try and get that one. So you must concede, Mr. Koko, now that when you raise issues, they are followed up.
Chair, they will help. And let me tell you how they will help. Is that people make up stories to condemn and criminalize people who have complied to the Eskom framework. And I don't think it's right. And I've said it many times that up to now, I have not been accused of not complying with the Eskom governance framework. I've not. Up to now, I have complied with the Eskom governance framework and I've acted lawfully. And the decisions that I've took, and I will explain to you, were prudent policy, were prudent actions in the interest of Eskom. And again, Eskom on the 15th of March, and again, this hurt me and it hurt my wife too. Eskom on the 15th of March called a press conference. And for the first time, for the very, very first time, make an announcement that...
Mr. Koko, can I make a plea to you with the chairperson's permission? I'm going to run out of time. We're going to run out of time.
No, actually, no, you are right, Mr. Selega, because I interrupted you while you were giving an answer to his question.
Yes.
So I'm responsible for this deviation.
It's fine, but let me finish this sentence now.
Yeah.
Because Eskom makes an announcement, and for the very first time, Eskom performance was the best in Koko's time since 2010.
Yeah.
So the challenge you have,
You've told me the challenge. Mr.
But
Koko.
here's the point. The answer to is that
I wanted to take you back to his question.
A contract is placed, and we call it a 4-5 number. 4-5 number, please keep that in mind.
You mentioned that before.
Yes, it's an Eskom jargon to simply say there's a legitimate contract between me and you, called a 4-5 number. Then a contract manager is appointed. Work gets done. When work is completed, a completion certificate.
Yes, you explained
is
that
done.
again. I think let's go back to what was your question.
I'm answering that because I am not in the loop.
Yes.
He's asking me if
Because I remember you explaining
Yes,
exactly
I could
that.
have stopped it. I am not in the loop.
I think you must say there was nothing I could do to stop
There
it.
was nothing I could do because I'm not in.
If he suggests that there was something you could do, he will put it to you.
And if to the contrary, Chair, if I imposed myself, I would be acting irregularly.
Okay.
And if something happens, they're going to say he acted irregularly.
Yeah.
He pretended to be a
Yeah.
smart boy, but now look. So
Yeah.
I could not.
Okay.
I could not have done.
The
anything.
answer is there's nothing more you could
There's
have done.
nothing more I could have done
Okay.
other than to say no. I've said no twice. Now, I cannot stop people acting fraudulently. And Chair, we will come back to this. And here, Mr. Seleka is not going to rush me because the last invoice that was paid for Mackenzie, that came as a motivation on the 17th of February. That was paid on the 21st or the 22nd of February, have got a very serious problem to it. Very serious problem.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
But let's continue. From your side, Mr. Koko, you make note of matters that he might not cover in his questions that you would want to address.
Yes.
So that later on you
But
can
the answer
just-
to that is that
Yeah, you could not have done
I could not have done anything,
Yeah.
other than to simply say no.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Well, your elaboration triggered another question because you were saying you can't stop people from acting fraudulently.
No, but and that was a deliberate choice of word, maybe an exaggeration, but when we get to the invoice of the 22nd, to the invoice that was paid on the 22nd of February 2017,
Yes.
we will deal with that.
Let's go into that master services agreement. So, just to lay the ground, the master services agreement, you say, is one of the things you proud yourself in having drawn to the chairperson's attention that Eskom should not have concluded that agreement because they needed treasury approval. Correct?
That's correct, Chair.
But last time, I asked you a question which led us to the emails of Ms. Motepu, because I'm going to put this to you so that you can address the chairperson on that. And I could go to the documentation if necessary, Chair. I don't know whether Ms. Motepu says you were the lead negotiator. But what she shows in her emails is that she not only communicated with you by email, but that she actually met with you in regard to aspects set out in the emails. That's one. Chairperson, I think they can give you the file, which is Eskom Bundle 14.
Can they remove the one that...
Yes, please.
Bundle 14 I've got already.
Brackets,
Yeah.
bracket
okay.
C.
A, B.
Oh, brackets. I
C.
don't know if it's brackets C. Yeah, that's the
Page.
one.
Page 811, 811.255.
Okay, I am on that page.
You're on that page.
That's the page that was opened in the morning.
Thank you. I'm just going to paint the picture, Ms. Koko, Mr. Koko, and
255.
255. Yeah, so the point is this. The point is this, Mr. Koko, that, and we see this more prominently from Mr. Aziz Lahe's affidavit, that despite what you are saying now about this contract, the MSA, that it lacked National Treasury approval for the appointment on a risk basis, that requirement for National Treasury approval had been drawn to your attention, and that you called Mr. Tim Azisla here to a meeting, and you were asking him, but why are you delaying the conclusion of this agreement? And he explained to you the reasons, which is the National Treasury approval. And you said, well, you were going to get your own opinion.
I like the gesture.
Let him finish, Mr. Koko. I can say you can't wait, so, but let Mr. Selega finish first.
Yes. And that surprised him, because if an opinion was to be sought, it would be Eskom legal that would source an opinion, which they ultimately did. They got an opinion from one of my colleagues, Advocate Kennedy, and he gave an opinion that you needed the National Treasury approval. McKinsey went out of its way to get its own counter opinion. But leave that aside for a moment. The fact that this requirement was brought to your attention, and nonetheless, the Eskom officials, including yourself, went ahead to purportedly conclude the MSA agreement with McKinsey and formed a steering committee, which you were part of. You attended meetings of that steering committee to deal with the services to be rendered under that master services agreement. So can you explain to the chairperson why, despite your knowledge of Treasury's lack of approval, would you have become part of that process that purported to conclude the agreement and even manage it in the steering committee?
Chairman, it did not have to be brought to my attention that we did National Treasury. To the contrary, it is me, when I came back, who drove the compliance to the National Treasury. And everybody involved in this project will tell you that the only, one of the things that made me see red was National Treasury, non-compliance. And I have a different reasons.
Non-compliance with National Treasury
yes.
instructions or directives. Yeah.
Yes. And I have a particular history with National Treasury.
Which made you to adopt that approach?
Which made me adopt that approach, and I will never take a risk with them.
Okay.
Of course, I had a specific experience with them, which the people in these meetings did not have. So I did not have to be reminded. I don't know Mr. Leha. I know of him. I don't recall a person of that nature in my office discussing this. So I don't know this meeting is talking about. Secondly, I would never, and Eskom processes, if you want to end up on the wrong side of Eskom, is to go to lawyers directly yourself. Then I can tell you, it's one way, south. So I would never.
When you say is to go to lawyers directly, what is the proper way? Is it to go through the legal department?
There's a delegations of authority in Eskom.
Yes.
Instructions to external lawyers are given to Eskom Legal.
Okay.
We've got a corporate counsel, and the corporate counsel at that time was Mr. Neo Tsulangu. So only Mr. Neo Tsulangu would brief
outside lawyers.
The affidavit of Mr. Mabelani says Mr. Tsulangu briefed the Eskom lawyers. That's Mr. Mabilane, and that's the right way to do it. Mr. Tulanku, and I don't have his affidavit here, will tell you that he never interacted with me. I never gave him a request to brief external lawyers. I never did. In fact, to the contrary, the people involved are very say a lot about who did what. So I don't know why I'm dragged here, because the affidavit of Mr. Mabilane tells you exactly how external lawyers were briefed. I could not tell Mr. Laha that I will get my own lawyers. I will be dismissed. It does not work that way. So I don't remember having a meeting with Mr. Laha giving instruction. I saw Mr. Laha's affidavit for the first time in my disciplinary bundle at Eskom in 2013. And I had to Google his name to check his face.
2013 or
2018, I beg your pardon.
Okay.
I had to Google his name to see his face. Because I never ever in my 24-year life interacted with a person called Mr. Salaha. He may have interacted with Mr. Mabilane, never. I can tell you now. And I would never go to source external opinion about it. As a matter of fact, I did not even know of the legal opinion given by your colleague. I never knew about it at that time. I knew about it, I think the first time I came across it was on the Gupta emails. So I even never knew about it.
Was your question, Mr. Salega, premised on Mr. Koko having had knowledge that there was an opinion which said Treasury's approval is required? It was not premised on that?
No.
Oh, okay, all right.
No, Chair.
Okay, anyway.
Is-
He has given an answer, and if you
Yes.
if you want to take it further,
Yes, no.
you may.
Indeed, Chair. Because of that answer, Chair, before we go to the steering committee, let's deal with this answer. Chair, in that same file, go to the very beginning of that file.
Very beginning
The
of
very
the file.
beginning of this file, Mr. Koko. Eskom bundle
14.
14.
C.
Page?
That will be page, right at the beginning.
I must keep my pen here.
Yeah, you could do that. You will find there an affidavit on page 702.235. Right at the beginning, the first. Yeah.
The first is Dr. Vice's statement,
Is that,
page 685.
then it means 702.235. 0.235.
702.35.
235.
235.
0.235, yes.
Okay. Yes, that's the affidavit of Mr. Abdul Aziz Lahe.
Lahe.
Yeah,
That's right.
okay.
And in paragraph 1.1, he says, I'm an adult male employed by Eskom Holdings, a senior manager heading up the group compliance office, based on the corporate head office at Megawatt Park. Chairperson, then, Mr. Koko, also please turn to, and I'm trying to cut to the chase. Please turn to page 702.264. Paragraph 10.30. You see,
702.264.
yeah, 702.264.
702.264.
Yes. paragraph 10.30. Chair, he's given the background, and Chair will read, which leads up to this, that around that time, between 21 to 30 October 2015, date not certain, I was summoned to Mr. Koko's office where a meeting was in progress involving Mr. Koko, Mr. Mabelani, Mr. Govender, Mr. Vika Saga, and Mr. Alexander Weiss, the last two being partners of McKinsey. Mr. Koko asked me to explain why I was holding up his business with my view that a deviation application was required, or he used words to that effect, and that he wanted the matter to be resolved by the end of the day. I explained the limitations in the 2014 NT instruction regarding how consultants could be remunerated, and that the only way forward was a deviation application. I also mentioned that personally, I had no problem with a risk-based remuneration model, provided the measurement mechanism was objective and reliable, or words to that effect. But the NT instruction had to be followed. I put it plainly by way of a theoretical example that if McKinsey came up with an idea that would save Eskom billions, but they only took 2 hours to come up with it, per the 2014 NT instruction, they would only be paid for 2 hours' work and based on a prescribed hourly rate. I asked McKinsey whether they had a view on whether the contract was in line with NT rules since they had experience in the public sector. My impression from the meeting was that Mr. Weiss admitted that in its present form, the proposed contract could not get around the NT instruction. In any case, McKinsey undertook to prepare a memorandum on compliance with the NT requirements. This was effectively a self-opinion. Also, Mr. Koko undertook to obtain external legal opinion himself on the matter. I had no objection to the seeking of an external legal opinion. I stuck to my interpretation of the 2014 NT instruction, but all the other parties present appeared to hold an opposite view regarding the permissibility of a risk-based remuneration structure, or at least dearly wanted it to be used. I said that this could actually be so, but only with prior NT, National Treasury approval. Chair, it goes on, particularly on the opinion he says Mr. Koko wanted to have, but that's the version he's put up, Mr. Koko. He seems to know you very well, and the meeting that other people were present at.
Chair, I don't know this gentleman. I had to Google his name to check his face, 1. 2, the procedure that gave effect to the National Treasury. If I'm not mistaken, I signed it.
Say again?
That document.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I seem to, because I think if it's the one that I'm thinking about that we have discussed previously.
Yes.
I think has got your signature.
Yes. So there is no.
That's about the hiring of consultants
Yes,
and
yes,
containing costs.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes,
I think
yes,
I seem
yes.
to remember you signed it.
Yes. So he did not need to bring this to my attention because I gave effect to that National Treasury's policy. The consulting work of Eskom was under my watch, so I knew the constraints. But besides, it would be interesting if the commission has done that, to get from Mr. Sulanku, who actually instructed him, because it's him who did that. It's not me.
That is obtaining the opinion.
Yes, it's not me.
Yes, I wanted to ask you the question, to the extent that Mr. Lahe says that you undertook to obtain external legal opinion yourself on the matter, I think you interpreted that as meaning that you would not go through the normal channels. But does it have to be like that, what he is saying? Could it not mean that you meant that you would approach whoever the right person is to obtain the opinion?
Certainly, Chair. I think you've got a point.
Yeah.
You've got and you are 100% correct. He may have meant I will go on my own or I'll follow the process, the channel. So let's give him the benefit and say I meant that I will follow the right channels to get Mr. Tsundanku to get external opinion. Fact is, I did not do it. It was not done by me. That's a fact.
Yeah. Okay, no, that's fine.
The second part is, look at the date. The date of the 20, granting it's 2015, so we don't remember the dates well. But even that week is the week that I left this work.
You had already left, as you remember, or
My last day was
you
the
were
20 my
in
last-
the process of leaving
The board meeting was on the 21st
of October.
of October. It was a board meeting, and that was my last
Board meeting.
board meeting. Then I was,
Was that your last day on this job?
that was my last day on this job.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess depending when, as you say, if he gets the dates wrong by a few days, it might not make much difference.
No, it do not make a difference here. But all what I'm saying to you is, I've never, in my relation, and Mr. Seleka says he knows me well, he doesn't. I don't know this gentleman. I don't know this gentleman. I've never interacted with this gentleman. I had no reason to interact with this gentleman.
Well, he says he was involved. He was in an office called compliance office or something like that.
Senior manager,
Yeah.
heading up the group compliance office.
Did you not deal regular from time to time with that
No,
office?
no.
You did not?
No. I never, it looks senior, but it's not senior.
Yeah. Okay.
It looks senior, it's not senior.
Yes.
So my direct contact would be the corporate counsel.
Okay.
It would be very disrespectful for me to go and talk to a senior manager corporate compliance. To be undermining my colleague's role.
Okay.
So ordinarily, if I have a requirement from legal, I will pick up a phone or walk to to the corporate counsel and say, "This is what I want."
Yeah.
And typically, the corporate counsel is an advocate, very senior lawyer. He will not deal with me. He will seek to advise me. First, this is Mr. Koko. This is my first step at what you want to achieve. That's how we'll typically work. But I would not go to the level of a senior manager and talk to this gentleman. I would not do it.
Of course, he gives a lot of details here. You, in regard to the meeting, you say you don't remember having this meeting. But in regard to knowing him, you seem to be quite clear that you didn't know him.
No.
But with regard to the meeting, the way you put it seems to say, look, I can't remember it, but I can't completely exclude the possibility that maybe the meeting did happen. But with regard to him, I'm clear that I don't
Certainly,
know him.
the names that I mentioned here, they were very important to my work, with the exception of Mr. Saga. Mr. Saga came in very late at Eskom. In fact, I met him on a few occasions. But the other names, for lack of a better word, I would call them they were my brain trust. If you understand, if I wanted to brainstorm a complex
issue,
I will.
Call them.
These people will typically the people that I would interact with.
Yeah, okay.
So and that is why I can't say I never had such a meeting with these people, because in a week, with the exception of Mr. Sagar, these people I'll meet 3-4 times.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Yes, Mr. Koko, I seem to recall
Gone beyond 1 o'clock.
coverage.
It's 10 past.
I will hold my peace, Chair. I will hold
Okay,
my
quickly.
peace. No.
Oh, you will hold it?
Yeah, I'll hold
Oh, okay, all right. Okay, let's take the lunch break. We will resume at 2:10. We adjourn.
Thank you, Chair.